Hey, everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us here. Rosenbaum Familara, the law firm behind AmazonSellersLawyer.com. What I want to do today is introduce you to Richard Gilbert, and he is from Payoneer, which is a remarkable company that helps sellers all over the world. They help sellers all over the planet make more money by doing just that, selling not just in the U.S., but in all the foreign markets. And he's going to be helping us today to learn, to help you sell more products, to make more money, and to make more profit. So, Rich, if you can, do a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of our talk today.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you for having me. And everyone, thank you for joining today. So I'm with Payoneer. Payoneer is headquartered in New York City. I've been with Payoneer for about a year and a half now, and I'm leading all of our partnership efforts for North America for Payoneer, which is a global company. And we work with partners throughout the Amazon ecosystem to basically work together to collaborate to really make global selling easier for Amazon sellers.
Could you before we get into this slideshow, could you give first like a 10,000-foot view of how Payoneer helps sellers go global and to make more money selling around the world?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, Payoneer is a currency conversion platform. We are a cross-border payments platform. So what we do is we really help businesses at a global level transact on a B2B and transact in multiple currencies. We have two parts to our solution. We have a payouts part of our solution, a wholesale payouts part of our solution, as well as a pay-in or receiving component to our solution. The receiving part of our solution is what we'll talk about a lot about today. It's what's most applicable to Amazon and Amazon sellers. However, we do have a number of other capabilities as well that help enable businesses transact globally, whether it's our escrow service, our Pay with Payoneer service, or just our collection service as well. And ultimately, what we try to do is we try to sort of work with other partners to help reduce the friction that small and medium-sized businesses have when they want to transact globally.
Well, let's talk first. Listen, everyone loves receiving money, okay? We all love what we do. The goal here is to be profitable. So let's talk about the best first. How do sellers receive money through Payoneer, and why is it beneficial to them?
Right. So what we do is we give sellers the ability to collect funds locally in the currency of the market that they're operating in. So let's just take Amazon, for instance. If you're selling on Amazon UK, you're transacting in British pound sterling, we give the seller the ability to be able to collect in that local currency. We do it also for the euro. So across all four of the euro markets that Amazon operates in, we support Canada, Japan, China, Australia now, and soon Mexico.
I'm a huge fan of the Australian market opening. In fact, I'm heading to Australia for the first time in May to go to a show called Retail Global in Australia. If you're opening in Australia, you got to hit this event. You're going to learn more about the Australian market in a couple of days, and you probably will have a whole year of self-learning. When you receive money from Payoneer, how do you actually receive it, and how do you end up putting it into your account or in your pocket?
Right. So what we do, our go-to-market is we enable our sellers with what we call collection accounts. They're effectively virtual bank accounts. So, and the beauty of these virtual bank accounts is it enables a seller to really operate in that local environment on a virtual basis. So we'll provide them with, through all the different banking partnerships that we have, we give them a real bank account number. It can be from one of the name brand banks that we have partnerships with, such as Deutsche Bank or Barclays or Citibank or Bank of Mitsubishi Tokyo. And we enable the seller to actually collect from Amazon directly. What you do is you go into your Amazon Seller Central account and you select a third-party solution or service for receiving your funds, and you put in the bank details to receive money from Amazon.
I also, we handle a ton of suspensions. Half of them have nothing to do with the law, like Authentics, You Sold Is New, where we're just writing plans of action for people. I don't let everybody know that we have never seen a suspension as a result of switching over to a Payoneer account. I mean, zero. We've seen no suspensions out of the thousands and thousands of people that we've helped. All right, here's the lesson. I know we got a slideshow.
I may add to that one sec. The reason why is because we actually have a partnership with Amazon as well. And we've actually worked through an entire process by which when a seller makes the change to their using the bank details of Payoneer, we actually provide them with a bank statement that's been approved by Amazon. So basically, the procedure and what we've seen in the past happen is that Amazon and Amazon is doing this to protect the seller because there have been a number of seller account hacks that have happened in the past. So what Amazon does automatically, and this particularly is in the UK and throughout the Eurozone, Amazon will request from the seller that they supply these bank statements. The bank statements that we will provide the seller once they onboard with us. It's an automatic process, and they simply submit them, and there's no issues.
All right, listen, I'm going to jump all over this meeting that you have at Amazon. How did that work? How did you get in? What's it like? Where did you meet? Reveal as much as you can that you can reveal without hurting your own interests, because that is something that people ask every day. We learn a lot of inside information by cross-examining Amazon's witnesses. It's sort of the side benefit of conducting arbitrations. I get to cross-examine their inside people. Please tell everyone what can you reveal about your meeting with Amazon, how that came about, and how it went.
So first of all, I only know about it from secondhand knowledge. So one of my colleagues actually manages that relationship, and it's a relationship that we have with the FX team within Amazon, and they specifically brokered, and this procedure, again, it's really very, very focused on the Amazon EU team, which encompasses the UK as well. They're the ones that really had instituted this procedure of suspensions when there was a switch of bank account details. So my colleague worked with the FX team, and the FX team basically brokered and worked with the Amazon EU team to facilitate this procedure and the approved bank statements.
You know, as we're talking about it, I'm wondering, because we'll get suspensions, certainly not every day, and maybe not even every week, where, especially in Europe, where there's a switch in a bank account, a switch in a credit card, and all of a sudden it results in a suspension. And when I have clients that we're having difficulty getting back on, I wonder if it would be fruitful that if they've already made a change, to then switch them over to a Payoneer account. Let's switch gears a bit. We use Payoneer to pay our staff overseas. So if you describe the process for how you use Payoneer, not just to receive money, but to pay money out, and how it benefits.
Sure. I mean, just taking another step back. So, I mean, obviously, our core service and what we provide sellers is the ability to receive money and then bring the money back to their U.S. bank. And we convert the funds much less expensively than Amazon would if you were to use Amazon Currency Converter for sellers. But beyond that, what we really provide is to your point, additional flexibility, the ability for sellers to actually utilize their funds to make payments locally in that currency. You can imagine it's a huge headache if you've got obligations, if you've got vendors or suppliers, let's say in the UK, and you need to make payment. If you don't have a source of funds in GBP, you're going to have to wire money out there or use a credit card and get hit with a pretty hefty conversion fee. So what we do is we give the seller the ability to use their Payoneer account in any one of the different currencies and actually make a payment. That's the feature that we have, where they can actually make a free transfer from their account to another Payoneer account holder. They can also do wires from their account as well. There's a cost associated with that, but the free transfer is really the benefit that we're promoting. And the other feature that we initiated just this year, and we'll talk about later, I'm sure, is the ability for a seller to use their Payoneer account to pay their VAT obligations directly as well.
Yeah, VAT is supposedly going to really, really heat up. Her Majesty's Royal Tax Collecting Service, they want their money, and they're not shy about getting it. They're being much, much more aggressive. The Brexit thing seemed to have slowed it down a bit, but now from what we hear, it's really, really heating up. And again, that's how we use Payoneer. We use Payoneer to pay our team, abroad, and wiring was a pain in the neck. So we'd have to go to the bank. PayPal was an enormous pain in the neck. Plus, it was very, very costly. So that's what we use. I don't know if you guys remember the old Hair Club for Men commercial. I'm not only a customer, I'm the president now. Well, I have no ownership interest in Payoneer, but we use them, and it works for us really, really well. Richard, you want to go to your slideshow?
Sure. Let's go to the first slide.
All right.
So this is really an overview. It's actually, as I'm looking at it, it's quite dated already. So we basically, the point of this slide is to demonstrate that Payoneer is really a pretty big company. We actually have now over 1,000 employees worldwide. The note there saying 40,000 plus Amazon sellers. Actually, it's now over 65,000 Amazon sellers that are active on our platform. And we're putting on about, I would say, between 1,000 and 2,000 every month. So we're growing pretty significantly. We support over.
Let me cut you off for a second, because we spoke, and I spoke at one of the Payoneer events in Shenzhen, China, and it was a tremendous turnout. And for the sellers out there who are going into private label or in private label or sourcing in China, whatever you're doing, if you're a transacting business in China, one of the key benefits of Payoneer is that you can keep it in RMB, you keep it in the local currency. And there are a tremendous number of businesses that you're probably dealing with there that you can do all the transactions without bringing the money back to US, back to into RMB.
That's right. Yeah. So and we're seeing a lot more of that activity now. A lot of US sellers that are already interacting with their Chinese suppliers and utilizing Payoneer to help facilitate those payments. Absolutely.
Like I've heard from my first wife and now my second wife, or my current wife, I tend to interrupt a bit. So I'm sorry if I interrupted what you were talking about from the slide.
No, that's fine. It's perfectly okay. I think that you bring a lot of good color and good points. I think the only other thing that's really important about this slide to mention, not only do we have over 3 million account holders worldwide, but that we do everything through traditional banking, corresponding banking relationships. We have over 46 banking relationships or partnerships, and we've basically leveraged those relationships in order to facilitate the transfer of funds into different currencies all over the world.
All right, should I go to the second slide?
Yeah. So I mentioned we're a worldwide company. We're headquartered here in New York City, but our base of operations is in Tel Aviv, Israel. And then we have another operational hub in Hong Kong. The slide previous mentioned that we have 24/7 customer support. We actually maintain customer support representatives in all three of those hubs: New York, Israel, which is our largest, and then Hong Kong. We also, in order to support the Amazon sellers that we have worldwide, we have a lot of local offices as well. We have a local office in all of the major markets where we have a sort of a large concentration of Amazon sellers. So India, for instance, we have an office in Bangalore. We have an office in the UK. We have an office in Manila, also in Seoul and Tokyo. And we just opened up an office in Kiev, actually, in the Ukraine, where we have a tremendous number of Ukrainian sellers that sell on both Amazon.com as well as Amazon Eurozone. But I think the largest concentration, where we actually have 3 offices now, is in China. And the reason why is just because of the 65,000 plus sellers. I would say over half of them are Chinese sellers who sell on all the different Amazon markets, as well as other marketplaces that we support as well.
What I think is great by having the 3 centers where people can call for help. Amazon sellers, one of the biggest frustrations that they can't talk to anybody when they have a problem, which I think makes them want to have someone to talk to for other problems. So, we do that a lot. We talk to, probably 24 sellers a day. Sellers need guidance. They need someone to talk to. So I think it's great that, and you're probably covering all time zones. And in the countries that you mentioned, you have either native or really close to native English speaking people, which is terrific. Sellers need that. Sellers need someone to talk to when they have a problem.
We actually support 8 different languages as well in these call centers. And these call centers are not just simply call, we also support chat and email as well. So it's all three, modes of communication, and then the languages as well.
All right, I went to the next slide, which I think we covered a little bit about this when I was asking you questions. But if you want to add to the conversation,
yeah. Let me add a little bit. Again, I'm looking at this slide needs to be updated as well. But what I like to say about what Payoneer does for sellers is we help them collect their funds, we help them pay local providers, and then we also help them grow. And I'll touch on each one of these. With respect to collecting, we talked about the capability already with regard to the virtual accounts that we provide our sellers. You know, the one correction I'd like to make to that slide, as you can see, we support GBP, USD, Euro, JPY, CNY. AUD needs to be there, as well as CAD. So those are two new collection accounts that we offer, and MXP will be there soon.
Sounds like you're flying a lot of miles.
Yeah. But basically, we're focused on. If you go back again to that slide,
sure.
Basically, we're focused on following Amazon. Wherever Amazon has marketplaces, our roadmap with respect to these currency accounts is to have one. The one challenging market that we have right now, frankly, is India, and a lot of that is just due to just the regulatory nature of India. And
I gotta tell you, we went into India also. We were there for a few months, and we kind of pulled back from India for several reasons. We were having a little bit more difficulty getting set up there, although I think that market's going to absolutely explode. For sellers out there, I think the next step, if you're already in Europe, if you're not in Europe, you got to get to Germany and the UK and the rest of Europe, then Australia. But India is going to explode. I mean, it's still a little bit problematic. Companies like Payoneer are going to make it, I think, easier financially. They're going to have to open their markets to get our products in there. But getting set up early and learning the ropes is no harm in it, because the population there is just tremendous. And I even read that the percentage of people that are millionaires is a fairly small percentage. But when you have like 2 or 3 or 4% of a billion,
that's massive scale.
Yeah, there are more millionaires in India than there are, domestically in the United States.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just to continue this slide really quickly. So the next component of what I said, from collect, pay, grow, we help our sellers pay. The underlying message there is, and really a foundational component of what Payoneer is all about, is we're trying to disrupt the international wire. So if you're using international wires for any part of your business, we'd like to sort of consider using Payoneer as a use case for that instead. And again, for the Amazon seller that's operating and selling on Amazon UK as an example, already you can pay your FBA or 3PL specialist in the UK who's helping you out. If you're getting invoiced in GBP, you can pay the HMRC directly for your VAT obligations using Payoneer. And those are the kinds of features that we'd like to be able to offer. The last component, and to me, this is the most exciting aspect of what we're trying to do, is we really want to help our sellers grow. One of the reasons why I'm speaking with you, and I speak a lot, is really to evangelize the opportunity for sellers to grow internationally. And so part of that is really helping sellers understand what the opportunity is selling internationally. As you mentioned before, there's great opportunities across Europe and Germany and the UK, but then also helping them address any of the sort of friction points. Many sellers that we speak to, they're very happy selling in the US. And when I ask them, well, why not sell in the UK? And they're like, well, I don't really feel like dealing with that. I don't feel like dealing with shipping overseas. I don't feel like having to localize in different languages. These are all friction points. And so what we've done is we've endeavored to really identify partners and work with partners in almost a bundled scenario to provide an easier solution for our sellers to go global.
Like, I tell you something, when I talk to sellers and they're doing well, like this time of year, we tend to advise people not to make too many changes for the next few weeks. But once the new year starts, I think you have to make the money when you can and where you can. So if you're doing well here domestically, take it abroad. If you're already abroad, expand to Australia. Amazon is a very erratic place to earn a living, an erratic place to do business. So if you're doing well now, you might as well expand now and make as much money as you can, now while things are good. Amazon's shift into more brand-centric business is problematic for a lot of like retail arbitrage and wholesalers and even retailers. Private label definitely seems like the wave of the future. But whatever you're doing, if you're doing it successfully here, it's easy to translate that into Europe, even though there are different languages. And we're anticipating it being really easy in Australia. And also India is English speaking. So don't be shy. You guys are entrepreneurs at heart. It's the next step. If you haven't traveled there, I'd say give it a shot. It's really easy once you start doing it.
Yep. One other point I'd add to that, I think you're dead on, CJ. But if you as an FBA seller enroll in FBA export, that's a great way to sort of get a sense of what sort of potential demand there might be for your product. So with FBA export, if a buyer is coming on Amazon.com and they're from the UK, let's say, and they're purchasing your product, they're willing to pay the extra shipping, they're willing to pay the customs and duties, which indicates to me that there's demand for your product. And if you start seeing more and more of that, then that's a clear indication that there's real potential.
Also there's the whole diversity. Diversity is vital in business. And if you're following all of Amazon's rules, which we don't always agree with, and you have one account, at least you want to diversify your markets, because we've certainly seen people who were suspended in one market but alive in another. So even if you do follow all their rules, it gives you some diversity, which a lot of sellers don't have. They got all their eggs in the Amazon basket. If you do have multiple accounts and you're really good at doing that, you may want to take each of those accounts and go international to have further diversity. I mean, diversity is the name of the game in business. If one part goes down, you're still making a living and making your payroll on another.
Very true.
Did I go the right way on this slide?
Yeah, that's fine. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but let me summarize this slide. It basically, there's sort of 4 ways in which you can receive funds from Amazon with using your Payoneer account. Obviously, you can connect your virtual account to Amazon. You can actually receive almost like an ACH or e-check funds from a company abroad. So let's say you're working with a wholesaler or someone who's trying to relieve you of some of your inventory in the UK. You can actually receive funds in GBP from that particular wholesaler or liquidator, and receive right into your Payoneer account, almost like an online bank transfer. And then also, if you have any foreign clients, you can actually invoice those foreign clients, and you can actually receive funds from those foreign clients again the same way. And then lastly, I think the other part of this on the right side is the ability to use your funds in some way, shape, or form. So the first and foremost is most common use case is people connect their U.S. bank to the Payoneer account to transfer their foreign earnings, and that's where we make our money. I mean, we make money off of the FX, the conversion from that GBP account back to your U.S. bank. Some of the other features, though, the ability to pay your VAT obligation for free, as we talked about, being able to, you can actually obtain from us a debit card, a MasterCard debit card, and you can actually load funds into that. There is a charge associated with that, but it's the same charge as you would to withdraw to bank. And then you can also pay other Payoneer users. The make a payment feature that we talked about before, you can make a payment for free.
There's also an aspect, as we're thinking it through, when the money is in the Payoneer account, is it even income yet, to the seller? If you're getting paid in the UK or in China, and it's still sitting in a Payoneer account, you haven't actually brought it home yet. I don't know, I'm not an accountant, but is it even taxable income? So like this time of year, let's say you're doing a lot of business in the UK. When are those taxes going to be doing that income? I don't know. Maybe it can be delayed till after the new year. I don't know the answer to that. Also, I would identify that if there's any litigation, again, I don't know why my divorce is coming up. I think since I had dinner last night with my ex-wife and my daughter. But if that type of scenario, assets in a Payoneer account would probably be pretty hard to locate, to identify if there are other things going on in your life.
Well, technically, first I can't answer the accounting question, and actually that is definitely a question for an accountant in terms of revenue recognition and so forth. The account itself is a Payoneer account. So it's not. We basically segregate that GBP account into thousands of smaller accounts for each account holder. So, but technically that account is a Payoneer account. This notion of and whether the funds are in Payoneer's name, so they're not technically in the name of the seller. That being said, it's sort of the obligation, I think, of the seller, and of course the definition that they have with the accountant to determine revenue recognition, where those assets are and who owns those assets.
Does Payoneer care how long you leave money in like the Payoneer sub account?
No. I mean, obviously, the money's not working for you. You're not earning any interest on the money. We're not earning any interest on the money either. It's just sort of sitting there. But no, there's no time limit in terms of when an account holder needs to transfer those funds out of the Payoneer account into their own bank or dispose of them in some way, shape, or form. I'm
not asking for any nefarious reason. I'm asking because if you're receiving money in a certain currency, you may want it to just sit there so you can eventually pay debts in that same currency. That you're avoiding losing money on the exchange rates and going it back and forth. So let's say you got $50,000 in January, and over 2018 you're going to have somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 in expenses in that country. You can just literally just leave it in that currency.
Yes, you can. I will also add that there are other features that we have within the Payoneer account, which I don't really get into in this presentation, but we do have full reporting capability. So the seller can actually download reports, provide those reports, to their accountant. We're developing through APIs. We're developing integrations into. Right now, we've done so for a number of the more significant ERP solutions in China. And starting in 2018, we're going to start developing integrations with ERPs in the U.S. for U.S. sellers as well.
Yeah, for our less advanced sellers who are listening, just tell them what ERP is.
Enterprise Resource Planning Solution. So it's basically the system that a business uses to manage all of their financials as well as their inventory management and things of that nature. And there are a handful of such ERPs that work with Amazon sellers.
I'm going to go on to the next one.
Mm-hmm. I think we can probably blow through this slide pretty quickly, but I mean the idea behind this slide really is to demonstrate that although it's a slide about e-commerce and e-commerce growth and compound annual growth. And how on an international basis you can see there's a substantial amount of growth in a number of other countries. China in particular is quite notable in terms of its compound annual growth, as well as India, as we talked about before. The U.S. certainly is another part of this slide that's really interesting is percentage of total retail sales, and that's taken on a lot of meaning, especially during Black Friday. The news has been reporting about how e-commerce is really starting to, take hold and almost eclipse traditional retail. So when you look at those percentages, you sort of see sort of the relative maturity of e-commerce and how e-commerce is becoming more and more of a way of doing business and a way of life in some of these countries. In China, in particular, where it's for 2019 expected to be nearly 14% of all retail sales.
Yeah, tremendous growth.
So here, we talked about. I mentioned before, my team and I, we've spoken with literally thousands of U.S. Amazon sellers, and I would say the vast majority of them are only selling on Amazon.com U.S. and are very satisfied. And some of them have multi-million-dollar businesses selling in the U.S. Alone. And when we ask them, gee, why haven't you considered selling internationally? It seems like your product really would resonate well in other countries, and it's got a real, American feel, and your brand is really strong. Why not go abroad? And these are the three sort of main hurdles that we hear. There's logistics and compliance issues. There's language and localization issues that sellers face, and then there's both international payments and currency friction. And we obviously Payoneer really addresses the payments and the currency component, trying to make that much easier and seamless for sellers. But these other two hurdles certainly are significant, and that's where these partnerships that I referred to earlier when I spoke about growth are really, really important. And again, we endeavor to really build a whole ecosystem of Amazon partners on a market-by-market basis. I call them ARC partnerships. So when it's US to UK, or US to Japan, or US to China, each one of these has their own unique sort of logistical and compliance hurdles. And so therefore we have to align with different partners who specialize in addressing those particular hurdles.
When you have, if you're here in the US, opening up an account is easy. You go into a bank, you show your ID, you open an account. What does a foreign national need to open up an account with Payoneer?
It's really very easy. They have to have some sort of an ID, a passport typically is acceptable. If they have a certificate of incorporation or something like that for their business in their country, we'll accept that as well and review that. Every account holder, those 3 million plus account holders, have all gone through a KYC, know your customer process. And that's really because we need to protect the integrity of the banking relationships that we have. We actually have in the fintech part of our business, our back office technology is really pretty sophisticated. And we're monitoring all the payments that are happening, all the money that's flowing back and forth from country to country, because we have to abide by anti-money laundering standards. And so it starts with a know your customer onboarding and making sure that we have the appropriate documentation for that particular business. If they have a website as well, we'll take a look at their website to ensure that the business doesn't have any sort of underlying nefarious activity.
So if we have a seller who's located somewhere in Europe or in China or in India, and they have like a U.S. corporation, or they have an account doing business in the U.S., would they be able to open up an account with Payoneer?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a huge benefit, because a lot of them either they can't come here and get the account open themselves, or just the banking regulations here in the U.S. have become so strict.
That was
the same thing abroad. I mean, you used to be able to walk into a bank in Hong Kong and open up an account, or Shenzhen. Much more difficult. It's
much more difficult. You're dead on, CJ, and that really is the nature of the initial partnership that we have with Amazon. We actually can support 25 currencies that Amazon doesn't support. And we have a partnership in that regard where they'll make referrals to Payoneer for these foreign nationals to open up a virtual bank account so that they can sell on Amazon.com for that very reason.
Global reach.
Right. So I think, the point of this slide really is to address the fact that, one thing about Amazon is that, doing it the Amazon way does make it a little bit easier. Amazon with FBA is just, it's an amazing platform, and it gives sellers the opportunity to go global a lot more seamlessly. Just as many of your sellers know Amazon FBA here in the United States, FBA across Europe, including the UK and in Japan, are really quite mature and very sophisticated.
I'm glad you're saying something positive about Amazon. A lot of people, when you're helping out sellers, it's like, we're the David, they're the Goliath. In a lot of ways, we are. Okay, David versus Goliath in a lot of situations, but a lot of people don't recognize the tremendous opportunity that Amazon has provided to us and to sellers all over the world. Whether you're a mature business person, you have an operation, you can access millions and millions of consumers, or you're just starting out with a cell phone and a credit card. I mean, so I'm really glad you mentioned that, because Amazon does create tremendous opportunities, for us all. I think that the way Payoneer works within Amazon, working with the system, there's an old saying. It's a saying. It's easier to ride the horse in the direction that it's going. So by having these agreements in place and following the Amazon way, where a lot of sellers, going to have a knee-jerk reaction, so they could see him as, the enemy or just a real non-cooperative partner. If you can make things run smoothly within the system, that's where you're going to make money. That's where you're going to make money without having issues. So I really appreciate positive energy when we have these webinars, because they're not the enemy, they're the opportunity, and you have to deal with, some of the warts that come along with it. But that's how you are all making money, is through this incredible Amazon system.
Yeah, and one last comment I want to make about that. But you're absolutely right, and again, we view Amazon as a really important partner and strategically very much aligned with them and their growth plans. I had the fortune of interviewing a few months ago one of my top sellers who sells all across Europe, and I asked him. I said, what's one thing that you would do differently when you launched in Europe? And he said, basically, his trajectory, the way he launched in Europe, he started with the UK. Then he went to Amazon Germany, and then Amazon France, Amazon Spain, Amazon Italy, and so now he's pan-European, obviously. And he said if he had done it differently, he probably would have launched pan-European a lot quicker, in particular in Spain and Italy. And I said, gee, that's very interesting. Why? One would think because they're such smaller markets that you're really not going to get the same sort of turnover and sales opportunity. He said, on the other hand, although the sales in the UK are certainly greater, the speed of the turnover, the amount of turnover and how quickly Italy and Spain grew was just remarkable to him. And a lot of that is due to the fact that, again, getting back to Amazon and its amazing infrastructure, in Italy and Spain, they don't have any competitors to FBA. So the ability to get product the next day or within 2 days in Spain and Italy, there aren't other e-commerce platforms like Amazon FBA. So
I agree. I think the order, if someone was asking me at the outset, again, we usually only get a call, when there's a problem, would definitely go Spain, would definitely go Italy, would definitely go France, would definitely get into Germany, which is a huge market. I might even recommend you go into the UK last, because even though it's the largest, they are by far the biggest pain in the neck in terms of resolving problems. So I'd like to see a seller really have more experience and have a smoother sailing ship before they go into the UK, because they are by far, when it comes to plans of action, they're very difficult. You would think that the other countries with language barriers might be more difficult, but they're not. Germany, France, Italy, it's just easier if you have an issue to get it resolved. And I don't know why the UK is so difficult, but they're certainly more difficult than any other country that we deal with. And like number one, I don't know why, but they are.
Yeah.
So how did they actually get the funds? I moved to the next slide, collecting the funds from Amazon.
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, actually. Oh, so I'm sorry. So basically, there are three different alternatives for collecting funds from Amazon. The first, which is really, it's sort of the default. If you're selling on Amazon FBA in the United States and you decide to open up a Seller Central for the UK, they sort of opt you in automatically into a service what they call Amazon Currency Converter for sellers. So you get paid basically the same way every 14 days. And what Amazon does is they'll convert the GBP earnings to your US bank for you on your behalf. And they do this for USD, they do it for Canadian dollar, for British pound, and also for the euro. Those are the currencies that are in play here for that service. Another alternative is you can actually fly over to the UK, set up an entity, have an address, and as you mentioned, it's certainly laden with a lot of overhead, CJ, and a pain in the butt to do. But you can actually set up your own bank account in the UK, and if you do expand and want to grow further, and you want to have employees at some point, yes, it's going to make sense for you to have your own bank account, but that's really more for the more mature, larger businesses. But for most Amazon sellers that are more entrepreneurial, the third option is really the best option, which is a third-party conversion solution that enables them to have a virtual bank account and a virtual presence for these different countries and currencies.
I'd say I'm not against more advanced sellers setting up entities abroad. But when you do that, you also got to realize it's not just setting up like, the corporation or whatever it's called over there. Now you're also going to be obligated to file tax returns for that corporation. I believe the UK specifically still has like an agent for the service of process, the same with Hong Kong, which mimics the British system. So it's not just a one-time shot of opening up a corporation. You have the same obligations you have here: a tax return, an agent for process, dealing with changes in the laws. If you have staff, you have employees over there, then it may make more sense. But if you're just selling on the platforms, Payoneer could be a really, really great option, because you can keep the money there, avoid the conversion back and forth, and avoid the tax returns for the particular country. And it's just something I think that sellers, one, you got to go global while you can, and number two, this is a great option for you to explore based upon the size of your business. It's easy, and this way sellers can focus on sourcing products, selling their products, their listing, keeping these customers happy, keeping Amazon happy, and leave some of the back end stuff to companies like Payoneer.
That's right. Now our solution, just to complete the conversation here on third-party conversion solutions. So our solution is less expensive than ACCS. We start by charging 2%, and then we go down with lifetime volume.
Amazon's at like 4%, aren't they?
It really depends. You have to look at each transaction. We've seen conversions by Amazon of anywhere between 3.5 and 3.75%. And the other thing that's, I think, really important about our solution, more than just simply being a cost saver, is the flexibility. The ability that converting when you want to convert, the ability for a seller to use their funds to pay local providers in that local currency, including paying their VAT obligations, I think are just really huge benefits to using a solution like Payoneer.
Easy, and you save money.
That's right. I don't think we need to get too technical here. I think it's important to understand, just with respect to the rate, what is the currency rate that we're basically charging. The way banks basically buy and sell currencies, it's a trillion dollar business. I mean, it's a huge business, but there's a buy and a sell rate, or a bid and an ask. And the mid-market rate, or the interbank rate, is sort of the midpoint between the bid and the ask. I think what's important to understand here is, and Payoneer, again, I started this conversation by saying that we're trying to disrupt the international wire. International wires tend to be a little confusing sometimes. When you go to your local bank and initiate a wire, you're not really sure what kind of a rate you're getting. You know that you're paying usually anywhere between a $25 to $40 wire fee. There's usually a landing fee on the other end of $15 that the receiver has to pay. But what's really important to look at is, if you're sending, let's just say $100 worth of something, and it's getting converted into GBP, you're not really sure what rate you're getting from the bank. It's usually not the mid-market rate. It's usually a much more elevated rate, and that's really where they make their margin, or the spread. The way we do it is, again, when a seller decides that they want to convert their GBP back to their U.S. bank, we demonstrate exactly the rate that they're getting, the mid-market rate, and then we add on our margin, which is our 2%.
I tell you, we also see from certain parts of the world that the wires are actually taking longer than you would expect. Like sometimes frustratingly long, because we deal with people, they want their plan of action that day, the next day, and when we're waiting for the wire to come through, which we try not to wait, sometimes it's longer than you would expect, depending on which country it's coming from and how long they want to sort of kite the money. We know the money changes hands faster than they tell us, but you may not have access to it, where this could be a much better way of dealing with it. I love disrupting the old time business of the wire. I think they should only bill what they make on the spread, not also hit me for the $35 fee that Chase is charging me for an incoming wire, and that the clients are paying for an outgoing wire. So I think this is great. Great
point, CJ. And you know it firsthand, because you're paying your employees and partners all over the world using Make a Payment, and Make a Payment can basically be enabled either that day or the next day, so that the receiver is receiving their funds really quickly.
All right, now we're getting into what sellers want to know is, how do I get more revenue?
So this basically, the point of this slide is to demonstrate that the margin that you can save with Payoneer is it can be meaningful. And I put together this simple example here. Let's just assume that the mid-market rate for between the British pound sterling and the US dollar is $1.32.7 exchange rate. Obviously, it's not that today. But if you apply the Amazon margin of 3.5%, that rate actually comes down to $1.2772. So if you're converting 100,000 pounds at that rate, you're basically your take-home pay is $127,000 versus applying just the standard 2% margin of Payoneer. That's an implicit rate of $1.30 for every pound sterling. So if you're converting your 100,000 pounds of earnings from Amazon back to your U.S. bank, you're yielding $130,000, which is it's $2,300 worth of savings right there, additional revenue in your pocket that you can use to pay yourself or to buy more inventory.
I gotta tell you, when I was in law school, I went to school in San Francisco, and I worked at a bar that was decorated with all these beautiful old Indian motorcycles. And the owner of the bar would watch the butter patties, right? And there's $1 million in motorcycles as decoration. He's watching the butter patties. And I had like, you watch the pennies. If you watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's a great expression.
This was in the Mission in San Francisco, and that stuck with me. You watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves.
I think we should just go on. This is very technical, and I think it's just an illustrative example of how we do the exchange.
Well, let's do this. This is definitely a longer Wednesday webinar, and I know our sellers. I hope you're swamped. You should be stressed in a good way, and you're making lots of sales. I'm going to take this down. Richard, before I get into what I want to close with, is there anything that you think sellers should know right now, going global, how Payoneer can help? You could sum it all up as to why our listeners should give you an email. And the email's right on the screen. Give us a little summary of why they should reach out to you and why they should get involved with Payoneer.
Yeah, like I said, so first of all, we support every Amazon market. So if you want to sell on Amazon Canada, Amazon Japan, Amazon China. Amazon China, by the way, is through invitation only. But I have an arrangement with my Amazon China lead to actually make introductions. So I can actually help facilitate introductions into Amazon China. But I think more importantly, you have my email there. If you have any questions about any of these different markets, I've certainly got a little bit of knowledge to be a little dangerous. But more importantly, I have partners for every one of these different markets, these ARC partners that I have. So if you're interested in getting into the UK, if you're interested in getting into Germany, if you're interested in getting into Japan or Canada, I can put you in touch with the appropriate partners that we have to help support any of the FBA questions you may have for getting into these various marketplaces, or any other sort of logistical concerns, any compliance-related issues such as VAT, and of course, localization and translation as well. We can support that as well through our partners.
All right, everyone, take down Richard's email. I'm going to take that off in 2 seconds. RichardGI@Payoneer.com. RichardGI@Payoneer.com. Write it down. It's about to disappear. I'm going to put something else on the screen that's really important to me, and I hope you guys do it, okay? I'm putting up the name of a charity, okay? If you've been watching this stuff, you know what charity it is. Hope I typed it right. Okay, now everyone who sells on Amazon, or practically everyone who sells on Amazon, also shops on Amazon. Okay, this love, hate. I love making money on Amazon. I hate when they give me a problem. I hate the stress of waiting for a bad email. But I also love how they deliver everything to me in feels like no time at all. If you are shopping on Amazon, or if you can somehow get this out to your customers, shop through Amazon Smiles program. Okay, it's a program where there's a lot of charities listed with Amazon, and you choose your charity. The Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation raises money to find the cure to pediatric cancer, children with cancer. Close fraternity brother of mine, I was a ZBT brother. Him and his wife, Lou and Cindy Campbell, just awesome people, lost their son to a really terrible form of brain cancer. and they turned tragedy into triumph, and they created the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. Go Amazon Smiles, choose the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. Every purchase made, it costs the buyer nothing, it costs the seller nothing. Amazon donates some amount of money to the foundation, and with sales absolutely through the roof right now, please shop through Amazon Smiles. Please have your customers use Amazon Smiles, and please choose the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. It's just a remarkable foundation to support. And you go online, it's Ty Lewis Campbell, you Google it. You can read the blog entries from Cindy, the mother who she lost her son, and the strength and the good that they've come out of it is just tremendous. I couldn't be more proud of my buddy Lou and his awesome wife Cindy. So please, Amazon Smiles, and choose the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. Thank you very, very much. This will stay up on Facebook. Contact Richard. Any questions for me? CJ at AmazonSellersLawyer.com. Sellers is plural, lawyer is singular. And thanks again, Richard, so much for coming on. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, CJ. It's great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.